I have this bracket courtesy of CNN since we are in March Madness and since my bracket is fucked because St. John's got upset by Arkansas, and it lays out 16 potential candidates for 2028, both on the Republican and Democratic side. We're just going to look at the Dem side real quick. Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, AOC, Ruben Gallego, Wes Moore, Andy Beshear, Gavin Newsom, Stephen A. Smith, Gretchen Whitmer, Rahm Emanuel, Pete Buttigieg, Cory Booker, J.B. Pritzker, John Fetterman, Josh Shapiro, and Gina Raimundo. As this list is presently constructed, there are only 3 people that I think have the juice to be president. Well, okay, 4 people. There's 4 people on this list, but I only would want 3 of them to be president. Tim Walz is one by far. Andy Beshear also. Those 2 are my top picks for 2028. I would also like to see AOC in there. I do think that she's going to be a very strong contender. The fact, however, that Tim Walz is a 16 seed is a fucking disgrace. He should have been the 2 seed. Who's the 2 seed? The 2 seed is Josh Shapiro, which I think really highlights what CNN is trying to get at here. So I'm picking Tim Walz over Kamala Harris. She ran a horrible campaign. She abandoned all of her values at the beginning, and they really muzzled Tim Walz. If he were not put on a leash by the Harris-Biden staffers, I think that he would have ran away. Him and Harris would have ran away with this election. Great vibes. Codes very moderately, but the policy is left-wing enough. He's doing objectively good things in Minnesota when it comes to labor protections, free school lunch for all K through 12 students. As we know, Minnesota has some of the best healthcare in the country. I think that he has the ability to legislate at the presidential level, but also is seen presidentially. Now, at the 8-9 matchup, we have AOC and Ruben Gallego. I will say, and this is, probably this is not something I'm proud of. I'm not too familiar with Ruben Gallego. Everything I've seen from him, he seems to be a fine congressperson. But even with that said, I'm rolling with AOC over him. Actually, next up, Wes Moore, Andy Beshear. Andy Beshear at the 12 seed, criminal. I would have probably put him number 3. Governor of Kentucky, Democratic governor of Kentucky that went Trump plus 30. He doesn't have a spotless policy record. He's pro-death penalty, for example. However, just banned conversion therapy, by the way, that's pretty good, is very open about his support of the LGBT community, and overall just seems like a chill guy. He just has chill guy vibes. And again, if he was able to win Kentucky, that projects well for a nationwide election. So very clearly going with Andy Beshear. Next matchup, we have Gavin Newsom and Stephen A. Smith. Unfortunately, I wish I didn't have to pick here because as far as it goes, like I might just pick between these 3 up top. I don't see anybody else actually competing with them. Gavin Newsom, however, definitely has the juice to be president. He plays politics better than anybody else on this list. The unfortunate part of reality here is that his policy is dick, duty, caca. He's actually horrible when it comes to working class policy. And I think that the Democrats in 2028 are going to have to lean very heavily on that ideology. As we know, Bernie is going around the country right now. He just drew 34,000 people at one of his rallies. His Fight the Oligarchy rally, where he prioritizes the well-being of working class people. Stephen A. Smith, again, I think that Stephen A. is very captivating as, a personality, but his policy is not great. he is open, for example, about not wanting to pay more in taxes. He also said recently that men don't belong in women's sports. I mean, this is a guy who covers sports for a living. You would think that he understands the nuance about it. But in this hypothetical matchup, I think that Stephen A would upset Gavin Newsom because at the end of the day, regardless of how great Gavin Newsom is, he is still the governor of California. And most people do not view California favorably. And Republican messaging against that would just be, oh, do you want your country to turn into California? So I'm going with Stephen A. Smith. Gretchen Whitmer, Rahm Emanuel. Again, I will say I'm not too educated on Rahm Emanuel. I do think that Gretchen Whitmer is okay, I guess, but not someone that I actually want in the presidential race at all. That very much goes the same with everyone else with the remainder of this list. So I'll go with Gretchen Whitmer. I'll go with Pete Buttigieg. I think he would do fine in an election, but I don't want him to be the party's candidate. When it comes to J.B. Pritzker and John Fetterman, obviously J.B. Pritzker, John Fetterman is a fucking demon who had a stroke and said that basically I became more conservative after having a stroke. J.B. Pritzker, I think, would be okay on policy, but he's still a billionaire. And I fundamentally disagree with him being a billionaire, regardless of how great his policy would be. Next, we have Josh Shapiro and Gina Raimundo. I think Josh Shapiro would crush. I think Josh Shapiro would crush in a general election because he has, he does seem like presidential, kind of the way that he's able to, the way that he talks, his oration skills are fantastic. But again, he's terrible on policy. And to save us some time, I'm not even going to continue with the rest of this bracket because at the end of the day, I'm rolling with Tim Walz over everybody else. He's beating Andy Beshear in the Elite Eight. We get to the Final Four. If I had to pick the Final Four, dude, I would put Andy Beshear down here, but unfortunately, I can't do that. So I guess in my hypothetical, it would be Tim Walz versus J.B. Pritzker, and Tim Walz would win. But now we get to the Republican side of the bracket, and this is fascinating because I'm looking at this list, and literally no one has the juice. This list is full of fucking charismaless losers. J.D. Vance, Josh Hawley, Nikki Haley, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Tom Cotton, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Tim Scott, Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump Jr., Brian Kemp, Elise Stefanik, Greg Abbott, Kristi Noem, Glenn Youngkin, and Doug Burgum. None of these ghouls have any capacity of being president, I don't think. They just, the Republican base, I don't think gets excited over anyone on this list, especially nationally. These folks may have strong constituencies in their state, but at the end of the day, none of them, I think, are capable of leading a national movement. And that plays into what I said before. The Republicans want to keep Trump in power for as long as they can because they understand that he's really the glue keeping the party together. I think, truly, once Donald Trump is out of politics, the Republican Party will crumble. It will cease to exist. It will become fractured because it's already kind of fractured. You have the MAGA base. You have the non-MAGA base. But even a portion of the non-MAGA base tries to be MAGA. And there's a sheer of disingenuousness amongst them. Like, they're doing this just because they want to advance their respective careers. J.D. Vance is the 1 seed. I don't see it. I don't see it. He would not be good on a national. He would not be good on the national stage. Let's just say, hypothetically, we got J.D. Vance and Gavin Newsom in a debate. Gavin Newsom would humiliate J.D. Vance. Pete Buttigieg would humiliate J.D. Vance. I think that maybe even Tim Walz would humiliate J.D. Vance even after such a poor showing in the vice presidential debate. As we know, however, Tim Walz is not that great of a debater. Josh Hawley, just no. Nikki Haley, no. She polled at like what, 1% in the Republican. Let's hang on now. 2024 Republican primary. Are you fucking kidding me? Dude, Donald Trump obliterated everybody in the Republican primary. Look at this margin. Look at this map. Nikki Haley got 95 delegates. Are you fucking kidding me? And you think that voters are excited to vote for her? You think that voters are excited to vote for Ron DeSantis? Absolutely not. I don't even think voters would be excited to vote for Donald Trump Jr. because it would just make them miss Donald Trump even more. Every time I see Don Jr., he just looks coked out and he's tweaking, and he just seems very slimy and gross. I also don't think that Republicans nationally would subscribe to the message that the Trump family is no longer a part of the establishment, especially after Trump had been president for fucking 8 years. So my presidential pick, Tim Walz. I think Tim Walz is the obvious choice for Democrats. If Bernie were not 907 years old, I would also be advocating for him to be president. But by the time 2028 rolls around, I don't know. Bernie needs to retire at that point, considering everything he's done for so many people. I think that either Tim Walz, AOC, or Andy Beshear, some combo of those two should be the Democratic ticket in 2028.